During the 7th generation of gaming, DLC and post-launch support in general started becoming more prevalent. Due to upgrades in hardware and the ability for consoles to connect to the internet, it was much easier and more common to support your game post-launch. Nowadays, we expect nearly every release to get DLC at some point. It's a shock when they don't. However, the Nintendo Wii was different. It was rare for a Wii game to get any post-launch support, let alone free or paid DLC. In fact, there's not a single Nintendo-made game on Wii that had paid DLC. However, some third-party games actually did have paid DLC. Introducing the pay and play model for the Nintendo Wii. Instead of the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection icon, some games had a little red icon with the pay and play name on the top left. Pay and play used the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection to let you access DLC menus within the games and use your acquired Wii points, the universal Wii currency, to buy them. This meant there was an option to get DLC for the game on your console. It is important to note that not every game with DLC on other platforms got the same DLC on the Wii. In fact, most didn't get any DLC on the Wii. So let's dive into the lucky few Wii games that actually got paid DLC. As a side note, I'm primarily covering games that released in America. The reason for this being that I don't read Japanese and it would be a very hard time to find Japanese games with paid DLC. A lot of these games had paid DLC in both regions, and I will be mentioning some Japanese exclusives. However, for the most part, I am focusing on America. The first titles on the Nintendo Wii to get paid DLC were WiiWare titles. This makes a lot of sense. The WiiWare games were already downloadable, and any extra stuff for DLC would be small in size anyway. So I will be covering the WiiWare games first. And up first, the first ever game to get DLC on the Nintendo Wii was Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles: My Life as a King. What do you mean, what the hell is that? Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is an action RPG developed by Square Enix for the GameCube. The game would later receive a remastered version on modern platforms. My Life as a King was a City Sim spin-off that took place after the events of Crystal Chronicles. I'm not gonna get into the story, however I am gonna get into the DLC. The DLC was priced anywhere between 100 and 800 Wii points. For my American viewers who didn't know about the Wii point pricing, 100 points was basically $1. And the DLC included new adventures of new races, as well as new costumes and dungeons. Buying all the contents would cost 2,400 Wii points, or around $24 in America. Side note, a recurring theme is that if you want a new version of a WiiWare release, you had to re-download the game. So in order to access in-game DLCs that were released after the game launched, you had to re-download the game. I could see it as being incredibly frustrating, but you had to find workarounds with the Nintendo Wii. Oh boy, we ain't done with Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, because now we have Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles: My Life as a Dark Lord. Now you may be thinking, this is just gonna be another game like My Life as a King, it's gonna be another city sim. No. This is a tower defense direct sequel to My Life as a King. And just like My Life as a King, it had DLC. The DLC were priced between 200 and 600 Wii points, and included monsters, artifacts, new stages. All the DLC combined would run you around 5,700 Wii points. Combined with the base cost of the game being 1,000 Wii points, if you wanted the full game, you had to pay 6,700 Wii points, or $67 in 2010. That's pretty insane. Who actually bought it? I have no idea. Getting away from Crystal Chronicles, we have Final Fantasy IV, The After Years. Oh, you thought you were done with Final Fantasy? No way. Square was pumping out these titles on WiiWare. Final Fantasy IV The After Years is an episodic sequel to Final Fantasy IV that was originally released on mobile in Japan. The word episodic is important here because you have to buy the chapters in the Wii version. The base game comes with the prologue and 2 chapters for 800 Wii points. The final 3 chapters were included in an 800 point bundle, and the remaining 7 chapters were available for 300 points each. In total, if you wanted the complete After Years experience, you would have to spend 3,700 points, or around $37. Thankfully, the last WiiWare Final Fantasy game, Crystal Defenders, would not see any paid DLC, to my knowledge. We may be done with Final Fantasy, but we're not done with Square. Tales of Bearsworth Manor was yet another Square Enix made WiiWare title, and oh boy did Square Enix love their DLC. It was technically 2 separate releases, although it really presented as 2 parts of one game. Regardless, each part has its own DLC. Now here's the kicker. Each part cost 1,000 points a pop, and if IGN is to be believed, the DLC for the game consisted of $20 or 2,000 points worth of extra levels and characters, and $21 or 2,100 points worth of what was called puzzling pages. So for the whole Tales of Bearsworth experience, you had to pay 6,100 points, or $61. Now I know, it's a bit shy of the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicle My Life as a Dark Lord title. That was like $67, but my god, Square really overpriced their DLC for what I could tell was a mediocre ass puzzle game. There are so many better experiences that you can get on the Wii, not to mention that this game was sold in 2 parts, so you have to pay $20 just for the base game. If you paid $10, you could get Mario 64. Like, honestly, you get so much more mileage off of the other WiiWare games on this list that you shouldn't even have bothered with Tales of Bearsworth Manor. Regardless, for now we are done with Square Enix, although Square Enix was pretty money hungry during the WiiWare era, I have to say. Next we gotta talk about Capcom, because quite a few of their WiiWare titles had DLC. The first 2 we gotta talk about were from their Mega Man franchise, Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10. Mega Man 9 and 10 were released as sort of throwbacks to the original NES 8-bit Mega Man titles, and they were released on all 7th generation systems, so if you had a PS3, Xbox 360, or of course a Wii, you could play them. The games cost 1,000 Wii points, or around $10, which is a good price for these very solid, amazing Mega Man games. Mega Man 9 released in 2008, and all the DLC released the same year in October. The DLC included the ability to play as Proto Man, new hard modes, new stages, and an endless mode. The DLC for Mega Man 9 would cost a total of 800 Wii points. Mega Man 10 released in 2010, and its DLC was similar. Released in April of that year, the DLC included the ability to play as Bass, as well as new stages and an endless mode, also costing 800 points to get the DLC. So for 1,800 points you got Mega Man 9, and for another 1,800 you got Mega Man 10. That is 3,600 points for 2 amazing Mega Man games, which is less than the cost of most of Square Enix titles. The Ace Attorney series by Capcom is a series of visual novels about lawyers trying to prove their client's innocence. The first 3 titles starring Phoenix Wright were all released on WiiWare, but only the first one had DLC. Now let me explain. So, the original 3 games released on the Game Boy Advance in Japan exclusively. They were localized via DS releases all around the world. The DS version of the first game had an extra case called Rise from the Ashes. It utilized some of the DS features like the microphone and the touchscreen. In the Wii version of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Rise from the Ashes is now a separate DLC purchase from the game. The base game costs 1,000 Wii points, and the DLC only costs 100 Wii points. So essentially you get the full first game experience for 1,100 Wii points. It is fitting because the other 2 titles cost 1200 Wii points a pop, so it's a little less than the other two titles. 100 points for one case is actually one of the lowest prices we'll actually see for DLC. It's honestly a really good deal because that case is a good amount of size and length. In fact, it's probably longer than most of the cases in the game. The touchscreen sections were now changed into motion control sections due to the Wii lacking a touchscreen. On a side note, I mean, it's kind of funny how like the Wii controls work in this game. Like, you can literally object by pointing the Wii controller. Like, look at this promotional art. Like, it's glorious. Why don't more companies do this? Arc System Works actually had a few WiiWare titles that had DLC. Unfortunately, none of them are Guilty Gear. They're actually part of a family game series they had going on both the physical side and the digital side of the Wii. The WiiWare titles, however, were the only ones that got any DLC. So first you have family card games, where you can purchase decks for 100 points a pop. Next, you have Family Mini Golf. The game itself came with 3 sets of 9 holes. The DLC was 3 additional sets of 9 holes, available at 200 points each. Finally, you have Family Pirate Party, which probably has the most interesting DLC out of the 3. It had a 300 point one-time DLC purchase that gave you 3 new maps and swimsuit costumes for all the characters. Because I want to see Dad in a swimsuit, damn it. An important thing to note is that you couldn't toggle the DLC costumes on or off, so once you got them, you were stuck with them. Considering the DLC was all part of one pack, it seems kinda dumb if you wanted the extra maps, you were forced to use the new costumes. There are quite a few WiiWare titles with DLC that have the word plus in it, and coincidentally, all of them are from Taito. First you have Arkanoid Plus, you know, that classic block break game Arkanoid. It's gotten so many ports and versions throughout the years. Arkanoid Plus has a gimmick. You're playing 31 stages, just like regular Arkanoid. However, there are 61 in the game. The thing is, after completing a level, you get to pick a path, one of 2, and each path leads you to a different level. So on any playthrough, you can mix up the levels, and you'll get a different experience each time. It's a really cool concept. The DLC is just that again. You get 61 more stages with the same exact gimmick, where you only play 31. Bubble Bobble Plus was a remake of the classic Bubble Bobble. The game had 100 levels, and its main draw was 4-player support. There were 2 DLC packs released, costing 200 points a pop, and each having 50 levels. So essentially, 400 points, or $4, will allow you to double the size of the game. The final Plus game from Taito was Bust a Move Plus, which is yet another new iteration of an older Taito experience. The DLC are actually included with the download, but you have to pay to unlock them. I mean, it is kinda scummy. However, considering it was downloadable anyway and it was on the Wii, I don't really think much people cared about it. Anywho, the DLC is 2 packs at 200 points a pack, and the packs contain levels from previous Bust a Move installments. Although we're done with the Plus games from Taito, we do have one more Taito installment. The last one is Space Invaders Get Even, published by Square Enix outside Japan, because you know Square loves their DLC. The WiiWare game is a take on Space Invaders where you play as the bad guys trying to guide and take over the Earth. It is a good premise and was actually once intended as a physical release, but in the end it was only released on WiiWare. The base game contained 1 level for 500 points, and the 6 additional levels were released in groups of 2, costing 500 points, meaning if you wanted the full experience, you would need to pay 2,000 points, or around $20. Harvest Moon My Little Shop is a spin-off of the Harvest Moon franchise, and is all about running your own shop in a fledgling town. The gameplay consists of mini-games of varying degree as you grow your town and meet characters from other Harvest Moon games. There were 4 DLC packs released. 3 followed the same structure. There was a bunch of decorations, and a returning Harvest Moon character which appeared as a customer. The 4th DLC pack was just a bunch of customers from previous Harvest Moon games. All the packs were priced at 400 points each, meaning the DLC totaled to 1,600 points, or $16. Now that we talked about some WiiWare games from the big guys like Capcom and Arc System Works, let's talk about a bunch of niche-ass games for a bunch of niche-ass publishers that had DLC. Derby Dogs was, from what I could tell, a shitty-ass dog racing game. It was kind of akin to those Duck Life games you would play in cool math games when you were bored, but bad. For 100 points apiece, you get dog houses, and each dog house allowed you to store extra dogs. However, the extra dogs couldn't do anything. There was no real benefits, just like, oh, you could get extra dogs again and train more. It was, as pointed out by many, a shitty ass way to spend your hard-earned Wii points. Copter Crisis is another WiiWare title that was niche and reviewed poorly. When IGN gives it 2, oh boy do they mean it. The game was priced at 500 points, and it was a helicopter flying game. Simple enough. The DLC is literally just other helicopters to play as, costing 100 points. There were 10 available, and judging by how the game reviewed, it's safe to say that just like Derby Dogs, the DLC, let alone the game, wasn't worth your hard-earned Wii points. Lawn Post is a puzzle game on the Wii, which reviewed a lot better than the previous 2 games I mentioned, but it also had a shit ton of DLC. The puzzle game had 10 additional levels as DLC. Each level cost 500 points. If you wanted the full game, you'd have to shell out 5,800 points, or 58 bucks. I mean, we're nearing Square Enix levels here. Now it's pretty expensive if I do say so myself. Word Searcher Deluxe is a follow-up to the WiiWare DSi game Word Searcher. Unlike that game, this game has downloadable content. The base game cost 500 Wii points and came with 100 levels. There were also volumes of 10 word searches available for 100 points each. Judging by the game's trailer, there were at least 11 of these volumes. Bobby Carrot was a series of German-made mobile puzzle games. A game that saw a release on WiiWare was Bobby Carrot Forever, which was essentially an updated console port of the 5th Bobby Carrot title. The game cost 800 points and included 6 worlds. The DLC worlds were sold at 500 points each, and there were 5 DLC worlds, meaning that 2,500 extra points on top of the 800 you already spent on the game would have to be spent in order to get the full Bobby Carrot experience. Just Jam was a WiiWare rhythm game that was actually very unique. It essentially played music and you could live edit the varying parts of the songs by turning parts on and off. From the reviews I read, it was a concept that worked really well. However, due to the nature of it being a WiiWare game from a small publisher, the songs included in the base game are not well known. The DLC of this game consists of new, also relatively unknown songs for 100 points a pop. There is also one song that's 200 points, and the only song you'll probably recognize, Funky Town. Next we got games in the My series, in My Zoo and My Dolphin. My Zoo was a sequel to My Aquarium, a game praised by some for being a good simulation title. Speaking of My Aquarium 2 also had DLC, which sold at 100 points apiece, although for the life of me I couldn't find out what was being sold at all. All I know is that it was being sold at 100 points, which is relatively cheap. And considering it was a well-reviewed game, I have to expect it was something kinda worth it. Anyway, My Zoo was also well received in that regard. You essentially feed your animals, and clean them, and raise them, and can even breed them. There are 8 animals in the base game, with 4 available at DLC, for 100 points per animal. The game also had a total of 12 slots to keep animals if you progress far enough, so you have room for one of each animal if you bought the DLC. My Dolphin, from what I've read, has got one of the weirdest releases I've ever seen for a WiiWare title. The story starts with a little boy, and he's super sad sitting by the water. King Triton saw this boy, so he decided to give him a dolphin. Now I ain't one to overthink things, but I think King Triton thought this kid was committing suicide or something, cause why else would you give a kid a dolphin? They're an endangered species. Anyway, the kid loved the dolphin so much, so King Triton deadass gave this kid a Wii remote to control the dolphin, because apparently that's what controls dolphins, guys. And the kid grows up, right? So he becomes a marine biologist. And as a marine biologist, he gives kids Wii remotes and nunchucks to control the dolphins. That is the opening to this game. That's what you first see when you open this game. I'm not making this shit up. As the story of the game would suggest, you use a Wii remote to control dolphins. The whole part of this game is preparing your dolphin for various shows by playing with him, teaching him tricks and whatnot. However, the paid part of this game is pretty bizarre. So, just like the dog game from earlier, you can pay 100 Wii points to get another dolphin. I mean, it makes sense if you're part of a multi-man household, you want multiple dolphins, that's what you're gonna need. However, you also have to pay to play with him, because the only free option to play with him is just petting him. If you want to give him a ball, you want to add some rings, oh, that's 100 Wii points a pop, baby. So King Triton is making a lot of money off these deals, and I can't blame him for charging that much. And judging by the reviews of this game, yeah, I don't think that much people bought the DLC anyway. Now, before we move on to the physical games, we need to talk about some not even games on the Wii Shop channel that got DLC. Princess Ai Monogatari is a manga series that got a release on WiiWare in Japan. The base game was 500 points, and I use game loosely. It contained 3 chapters of a manga. 2 other chapters were sold at a price point of 200 points each. Kirby TV was a European exclusive Wii channel that let you watch episodes of Kirby Right Back at Ya, as well as trailers for Kirby games releasing on the Wii and DS at the time. The episodes they allow you to view were time-locked, although if you watched an episode, they would occasionally allow you to watch a locked episode. Anyway, the Kirby channel lacked a paid component. So why the hell are you telling me this then? You may be asking. Well, Japan had a video-on-demand service called Winoma that allowed you to download episodes of Kirby Right Back at Ya, but this time for a price. For 100 Wii points, you got an episode of the 100 episode series. So if you wanted all 100, you'd have to pay 10,000 Wii points, or $100 US. I don't know about the conversion again, I'm not Japanese. Anyway, the price reduced to 5 episodes for 100 points. So in order to get the entire series, you need around $20 US. Now let's get into the physical re-releases with paid DLC. If you look at this list, you will see something that nearly all of them have in common. What is it? If you guessed rhythm games, you are correct! It really makes sense that most of the physical Wii games that followed the pay-and-play model were rhythm games. We will get to this one, it's pretty funny. Anyway, rhythm games make up most of this list because of how DLC worked on the Wii. DLCs were actually treated as DRM locked save files, so you really couldn't store much. And what's something that doesn't really take up much space? Songs. And songs make up all of these rhythm games DLCs. So let's get into it. Samba de Amigo was the first physical game to have DLC available for purchase on the Wii. The rhythm game came from the arcades and the Dreamcast, and this was a port of said game, released for the Wii with some extra songs. The DLC for the game were packs of 3 songs, with the packs costing 500 Wii points each. Now onto the Just Dance series. Just Dance 2, if you didn't know, was exclusive to the Wii, and had songs that were available to download with Wii points. Each additional song had cost 300 points. $3 per song is pretty expensive, especially when you compare it to the other rhythm games on the list. Just Dance 3 was the best-selling third-party Wii game, but was also on other platforms. And let me tell you something, finding out which songs were on which console was a pain in the ass. I mean, look at these footnotes, like, what? Anywho, it's a mess. Baby Don't Stop Now, Mambo Jumbo, Soul Searching, and Twist It and Shake It were on the Wii as DLC, but on the PS3 as the base game songs, and that's as far as I want to go. All I can say is that the songs are now down to 250 points each, with packs of 3 available costing 600 points per pack. Just Dance 4 had DLC on both Wii and Wii U at the same time, which was pretty neat. Anyway, it was back to 300 Wii points on Wii. Just Dance 2014 was when they started doing years, and all the new songs had cost 300 points, just like Just Dance 2 and Just Dance 4, with returning DLC songs and routines costing 200 Wii points. Just Dance 2015 was the final Just Dance game to have DLC on the Wii, and it featured the same pricing model as previous years, with some songs costing 200 while others cost 300 points. The Guitar Hero games also had paid DLC. Guitar Hero World Tour had DLC for songs which to my knowledge had cost 200 points, with 550 point bundles of 3 songs. The bundles were generally grouped together, so you get like 3 Blink 182 songs for 550 Wii points. Anyway, the way it works on the Wii really shows you that the Wii wasn't intended to have any DLC at all. The song is stored on an SD card, and then when you pick the song, they are stored on a 200 block content cache within the regular Wii flash memory. Afterwards, the song is deleted from the Wii flash memory. Anyway, the Wii got some songs later than other systems due to licensing issues. The DLC is forward compatible with Guitar Hero 5 on the Wii. However, the exception are the Jimi Hendrix songs, which are supposedly due to licensing. Anyway, Guitar Hero 5 had similar pay structure, but an interesting thing is that you could also transfer songs from Guitar Hero Smash Hits, which is essentially like a best of from Guitar Hero, and it only cost a small fee. Judging by the Xbox price, the Wii price would have ended up being the equivalent of 200 Wii points. DJ Hero on the Wii is a fun one, as the DLC with some song tracks and mixes. The song tracks had cost 200 Wii points a pop, while the mixes cost 300 points each. The funny thing is that the Wii version let you purchase songs one at a time, whilst the 360 and PS3 required you to buy bundles for some. So technically, the Wii version was considered to be the haven for player choice for this game, which is pretty funny if you think about it. Rock Band 2 and 3 had DLC, and the songs were some of the cheapest yet. 200 points for one song, as well as 550 points for packs of 3, which was a similar pricing structure to the Guitar Hero games. However, there were also packs of 6 for 1000 Wii points, and some songs were actually only 100 points at launch. There were actually price decreases to 100 points for all the songs after a while. Another thing to note about this and Guitar Hero is that 100 extra points in these games gave you access to the pro versions of songs for guitar and bass. The final physical rhythm-based Wii game we're going to talk about is Yusin 2. It was hard to find the specifics of the DLC, but in summary, the songs with the music videos, the only one on this list with music videos, were priced at 300 Wii points a pop. It was more on the expensive side if I'm being completely honest. The final game I will be talking about today is the only non-rhythm based physical Wii game I could find with DLC, and that is Tiger Woods PGA Tour 10. There was actually DLC released for this game on 360 in the form of courses. However, the Wii version couldn't get that DLC, so some of them were just included on the disc and some of them never made the Wii version at all. The Wii version of the game is considered the definitive version because you can play disc golf, and also motion controls worked really well. The DLC that did release for the Wii version of the game were some special costumes and clubs, which is a bit of a downer, but it makes sense, they don't take up much space at all. I could not find a Wii price for the game. I assume it was pretty low priced. The bunny outfit on Xbox 360 was priced at 300 points, which converted to US dollars was $3.75. I know, Xbox currency was pretty freaking weird. I doubt they would sell something for 375 Wii points. It was probably around 350 to 400 Wii points. But that's about that for Tiger Woods. Looking back at all these downloadable contents, it's nice to know about a history of something Nintendo didn't even support. Paid DLC on the Nintendo Wii. Now we expect nearly every game, including the Nintendo ones, to get paid DLC at some point. However, back in the past, it was much less common. And to see the work the developers put in to make sure that they got a little bit of extra money on the Nintendo Wii is honestly a bit commendable. Sure, you have the greedy guys at Square charging like almost $60 worth of DLC for a WiiWare title, and also you have all those shovelware games that like gave you extra stuff that should have been in the base game in the first place. But a lot of these DLCs were in fact pretty special. Some of them were part of the childhoods of many children out there, and while I personally never experienced them, I am happy to have learned about them, and I hope you are happy to have been on this journey with me and learned about them as well. My name is E-Man the Great, and I'm signing off. To end this video, I just want to thank Nintendo Life. Nintendo Life helped me a lot. There are old articles from like 2008 to 2009. They helped me, you know, decipher the prices of these WiiWare games, DLCs. Something I wouldn't have found out otherwise. So I'd just like to thank them so much. I'd also like to thank, you know, the Wayback Machine. It's important to preserve our history, and the Wayback Machine helped me out. Specifically, I think with my Dolphin initial WiiWare price. I don't know why I remembered that one specifically. But yeah, thank you so much. And thanks to all the video game publications like IGN, who also published articles that helped me decipher the prices. And all those old forum posts, and all those like 6,000 view YouTube videos from like 2007 about all these WiiWare games that most people haven't heard of. Those also helped me out, so thank you so much. And finally, thank you to all the viewers. The viewers are the most important part, and I hope you like this video. If you liked the video, consider subscribing. I'm planning on doing more video essays like this in the future. If you dislike the video, make sure to hit that dislike button, honestly, because, you know, it helps me figure out what content is good or not. If you don't like this content, make sure to tell me. And with that, see you guys later.